Good morning, everyone. So today is Sunday. That means Vijayawada session is there. Vijayawada community group is there to conducting some sessions, and we have started in month of June, and it's going pretty well for us because of your support, guys. So we have started we started with the Meet the Leader series session, and it went well. After that, we have done a session on D2C by rupees 40. It went well, and we have started again with the Demystify as a product. We have completed our sessions. We have started the series with Commerce Cloud, and Commerce Cloud is done. And today we are coming with Community Cloud by Meighan. Hi, Meighan. Thanks for joining. Thanks for taking your time to join this session. Okay, guys. So we have started with our welcome keynote, and so Meighan will take us through Commerce Cloud. And along with it, we will have question and answer session. So if you have any questions related to the session, so
first of all, sorry for the typo. It is Community Cloud. Sorry, guys. It's Demystify Community Cloud. Please don't mind.
So yeah, right. Sorry for that. So if you have any questions, you can use the chat window. So ping us on the chat window so that Meighan will take a look, and Meighan will answer all your questions. So use this chat window for your questions. And along with this, if you have anything to note down, please grab a paper and pen so that you won't miss anything. So if you feel anything is new to you, if you feel anything is interesting, so please note down. You can use your sticky notes or notepad as well if you want to.
Hey guys, here we go. We have Meighan Brodkey, and she's a technical architect and WIT user group leader, and she is a Salesforce MVP, and she's very much active in Twitter as well. Her account is Meighan SF. Go and follow her, and she's very much happy to guide you in whatsoever the things. When I can remember when before I joined my job, she guided me how to start yourself as a fresher, and how to be some of the quick takeaways to start from work from home. So she gave some good tips for me to how to do work from home, and those tips are really helpful for me. And till date, I'm using those tips, and she's very much friendly, and we used to have chat every here and there, weekly, twice and twice. A good person, more than a good leader, she is a good person. So we are happy to have you, Meighan. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for accepting our invitation.
Thank you.
So here you go, Meighan. The session is all yours, and you can share your screen.
I'm going to share, and let's first get started with the presentation. I think everybody has head smaller and present. All right. So to get started, talking about Community Cloud. So Community Cloud is your opportunity to shine externally. And to get started, hi everybody, I am Meighan Brodkey. I am the practice manager of the architecture team at Exceed Consulting, and I'm also a technical architect. I am a Salesforce MVP since 2018. I'm a blogger. You can check out my blog at meighanrockssf.com. I am also the co-host of a podcast, System.debug. Our next episode is on Monday. You can check us out, 4:30 Pacific. I'm a Dreamforce presenter, Dreamforce 17, 18, and 19. I have presented at a number of community events around the world, including Surfforce, World Tour Chicago, Your Dreaming, Forcelandia, Force Academy LA, Camp Success Bellevue. I just love presenting at community events and attending them. Meeting the community and having the opportunity to connect with other members of the community is one of my favorite things to do. So getting out there and doing so is something that I strive for. I have over 480 Trailhead badges now. I run at Seattle Women in Tech. I'm a member of the Salesforce Community Club, which is a group for community cloud experts run by Salesforce. I am the founder of Ohana Slack. Quick jump backwards. No, stop. And Zoom bar is always right where you want to click. Everyone who's presented knows that. And then again, you can find me on Twitter at MeighanSF. One thing that I started just recently within the past week, by the way, is a new Salesforce Saturday that is designed for those that are on their way to their CTA, anywhere within their journey. You can sign up. I'll drop the link on Twitter after I'm done presenting. You can sign up on the Trailblazer community. And it doesn't matter if you're just starting your journey or if you're to the point of attending your boards. It's going to be a great event, a great opportunity to join. We'll be meeting once or twice a month, depending on the amount of members that we have joining. But it should be a lot of fun. We've gotten a lot of members so far that have been signing up. So hopefully some of you will be able to join that group and join us. All right, so to dive right in. So what exactly is Community Cloud? So I mentioned before that Community Cloud is your opportunity to shine externally. So when you design for Salesforce and you're designing for your internal teams, what you're designing is for your internal users, be it sales, support, etc., to use Salesforce to help them sell, help them support your users. But your community is a way for your external users and your internal users to connect. You can use that to accelerate your channel sales. You can use that to have your customers work on self-service so that they no longer have to be picking up the phone every time that they need help. And they can then help them help themselves. You can use it to have your partners measure their own performance and have better partner performance. You can use it for e-commerce and have an online store. You can help drive your brand engagement. Your brand is extremely important when it comes to your online community. Who you are and how you represent yourself with your community ends up being one of your main goals. Marketing throughout the whole development of your community plays an extremely large part, be it through the imaging, through the hex codes, and overall, how do you present yourself? Marketing is going to play a role. And then you can also use it to boost employee productivity. Be that as employees being more productive by the fact that they have a community to work with partners and customers, or if you create an internal employee community and your employees have a place for themselves to then find HR resources, find internal resources to help themselves throughout their day. And Community Cloud can help you through all of these things. And what you'll notice here is that Community Cloud, usually represented by the 3 people icon, is connected to all of these other clouds. And the only way that a Community Cloud is able to function and be a useful cloud and help you do all these other goals is by pulling in and connecting to all the other clouds that are out there and that you are using in Salesforce, because your community isn't standalone. Your community is exposing your Salesforce data on the outside. And so it's one of the reasons why I love Community Cloud so much, why I love Community Cloud projects, is you can't actually have a community project without touching other clouds, which makes it so much more fun. And so who is actually using Community Cloud? And so when you're using communities, you have business to business situations. And this can be pretty much anyone. You can have retail here. Think about that, the idea of having that online store. You can have pretty much any industry that falls in where they're doing a business to business connection, be a partner relationship. You can also have a B2C, where you're actually reaching out to individual consumers that aren't actual businesses. In this type of situation, you're probably going to have a customer community license where you have something that's more high volume. You also have financial services. Financial services is quite a big area within the Community Cloud. I would have to say that I see a large number of Community Cloud projects that are circled around the financial services area. Insurance. So I don't know if you've looked at a number of the Dreamforce presentations that are out there, But for example, farmers insurance is huge when it comes to using Salesforce and the community cloud. Another example when thinking about the B2B side would be at Papa John's Pizza. If you want to become a franchise owner, you would be using the B2B side of Community Cloud. When I think about B2C, there's the Harley Davidson School for riders. In that case, I am somebody who wants to learn how to ride a motorcycle. I would be using the Community Cloud to go through my rider school. There's also healthcare. So there are a number of places where you have your healthcare providers that are able to interact with not only other healthcare providers, but their individual patients within the Community Cloud space. When you're dealing with things like healthcare and financial services, that really says a lot about the security that's available within Community Cloud and what type of options are available for locking down data and keeping that information private. You don't want healthcare information or information about who is who or who's communicating with who exposed. So knowing that you have a lot of options for locking down data, so much so that those types of industries are able to use the cloud, is really quite awesome. And then you also have education. In the past, I've actually done projects where you have foreign exchange programs and working in the higher education, going into the .org space. And you're able to go sign up for a program, go through the registration process, find out whether or not you're able to join that program, and the whole process of going through the actual time overseas and finding out what are the requirements, what do I need to have, what type of paperwork do I need to turn in, when information is needed, what are the healthcare requirements for me to go, what type of shots do I need, when is my flight, what classes am I signing up for? And having all of that available, plus so many more industries available to you, Community Cloud is pretty much available and an option for any customer that is using Salesforce. You can find a use for Community Cloud. So what would these use cases be? I mentioned before, self-service. Help your customers help themselves. So one of the most common components within the Community Cloud that Salesforce talks about as well is called case deflection. So customers need to make cases, support deals with cases. Case deflection actually allows a customer, when they're starting to create that case online, to have knowledge off on the side and discussions that start coming up to give them the answers to the case that they're starting to type in, so that they can then go, oh, hey, I don't actually need to make this case. I found the answer for myself. You can also have your standard knowledge base available to you. You can have chatter groups where people help each other out, etc. You can also have a support community separate from self-service. Self-service is when people are finding answers for themselves. Support is where you're giving them answers. So support would be just having the cases, but not having knowledge available to them. You can also have just a straight up content community. A content community is a community that just holds documents that's quite static. You can change these documents out, but there's no interaction back and forth. An example of this would be some of the communities that came up during COVID, where you have state and government sites as well as .org sites, where they're displaying documentation in static text on pages, and it's just giving out information. Also, sales. There are a number of communities out there that are for partner sales as well as for e-commerce, where you can go in, you can have CPQ, or you can have a custom e-commerce option where people can make sales, or partners are tracking leads and opportunities. The sales option ranges from the actual process of making sales to just tracking leads and opportunities. Another option is collaboration. Collaboration is huge in the community side. Everybody loves Chatter. Chatter is a great way to connect with your community users as well as for your community users to connect with each other. and for partner community users to connect with customer community users. One thing that may end up coming up if you are building a community is that in your first release, customers may say, I'm not ready to have collaboration yet. They may just want to have self-service or support or content or sales and not do collaboration until R2. It's definitely an option, but just something to think about and find out the why wait for collaboration if you're in that type of situation. And then of course, the idea of a combination. Maybe you don't want to just have knowledge, but you want knowledge and support. Maybe you don't want just support, but you want support and sales. Or maybe you want collaboration, sales, and support, and self-service, and a bunch of content. Your community use cases can be endless, and they can be a mix and match of any one of these above. So one of the most important things when working on your community, and even especially when working on your certification, but when you're planning your community and when you're getting your users started, is which license to pick. So there are limits and wins with every license. So first off, I'm going to start at the top. Let's start at the top. All right. So you have customer community licenses. This is your baseline license. This gives you access to most things within a community. You have access to majority of your objects that are within it that are going to be used, but you don't have access to content, and you don't have access to sales objects, and you also don't have access to edit or create tasks and events. This is great for high volume situations if you're going to have millions and millions of users. It's great. It's the only option here for sharing is to use sharing sets. I've seen a ton of communities that use just customer community / customer community login licenses. We'll talk about login versus seat shortly. The next option is going with customer community plus. This gives you the advantage of having reports and dashboards and having access to content. So content doesn't seem as important as it did before once you're in Lightning, but in all actuality, those content workspaces when you're in a community and having access to be able to assign files based on a public group and to give access to those documents really ends up becoming important, especially if you have a community that is using a lot of files and sharing out information based on specific criteria, or if you want to use public groups as a whole. So knowing whether or not you're going to need reporting and how you're going to be distributing files, those are things to know in advance before you purchase your licenses. Then next up, we have partner community licenses. The only reason to look at partner licenses are if you are going to use leads and opportunities. And when I say use leads and opportunities, will they need to see the actual lead record that the sales team is going to be using? Or will they need to just submit leads? Customer community and customer community plus, they can submit leads all they want. They just can't see them afterwards. So are they going to need to see or to submit them and see them after, or just submit them? And then for opportunities are only available to partner and community users. You also have the concept of unauthenticated. Some communities do not need you to log in at all. They are 100% unauthenticated, which means you cannot return to a record after you have started it. And that data is available to the whole wide world always. So I mentioned before that we would talk about the difference between seats and login. So a login license means that you are given a number of logins versus an individual user. So when you and I log into our Salesforce, we have a seat. That means somebody purchased our username, and that username is dedicated to us for a license. That license only applies to one person being active for that specific license. However, a login license, what they're actually purchasing is X number of logins that they can have up to 20,000 users that can be assigned to that login, like that you can have active at a time. Community that can log in at a time, but it's based on how many times they log in. I could log in maybe once or twice. You could log in maybe once or twice. And as long as we don't go over the allotted number of logins, we'll be good to go. And then they reset the next month. The question that came up next was, can community licenses be used for internal users? And no, they cannot. Salesforce actually has it in their terms of service that if they catch you using community licenses for internal users, you will end up getting billed for standard user licenses for those users. So do not use community licenses for internal users. So we're going to start digging into the fun part. We're going to start going into what makes a community what it is. So you have templates. The first part about being a community for a Lightning community is you have templates, themes, and components. And I used to do this whole spiel about Winamp here, and then I realized that was starting to get old. So we're just going to break it down like this. Templates are used within the community, and they actually hold a specific set of pages per template. So when I pick customer service, I know I'm going to get account management, I'm going to get cases, I'm going to get accounts. I am going to get a few other object pages in there. I'm going to get my login pages if I have licenses. By the way, login pages only show up if you have licenses in that org. If you have licenses in production, but you're not seeing your login pages in your org, go to your company information and click the button that says make your licenses reflect production, and then your login pages should show up. In addition to holding those set pages, they'll also bring over a set of components, and those components are the same every time with that template. If you make a community and you use the customer service template, then you go make a community with the Partner Central template, you'll actually notice the components that show up are different. And the reason why is because certain templates have access to certain components. Templates are out of the box or they are installable. You can also make them custom. And it's important to pay attention to which ones you select. And you can also export your templates if you make one custom, and you can turn them into a bolt. We'll talk about bolts in just a second as well. The next thing, as I mentioned, you had templates, themes, and components. We have the themes. So themes are, as I like to call them, your pretties. So they're kind of like the skin to your community. So no matter what, your template is staying the same, but you can change your theme and it's going to change the look on your community. And it's going to change that look and that feel to the template while keeping the baseline functionality. You're going to keep all those components, you're going to keep all those pages, but it's going to look different. You're going to get some cool little, wins from the look. If you take Jebsen, for example, that's my go-to theme, by the way. You end up getting the little search bar that are the hero, and you can have the buttons or you can have a search bar. It's your choice. Webster just has a search bar. That's part of the theme because it switches based on which I select, but I'm still always in customer service. It's not going to change the objects, the object page or the object pages, the pages themselves, or the components available to you. And again, themes can be out of the box, installable, or built. Themes are made with Lightning components. And in Winter 21, there's some cool Lightning Web component theme options that are coming out for those of you that have been checking out your Winter 21 release notes. So highly recommend checking that out. And then next up, components, the last of the powerful three. So these are the individual building blocks for pieces of functionality. These components work just like they do internally. And you can have these as out of the box or custom. Examples would be record detail, record list, org tree. Org tree is a custom one to install that's a lot of fun. And they help you complete your community to be that perfect view of your community. Themes help you get pixel perfect. It's kind of the way to think about it. And components help you complete that look for the complete functionality. And then your lightning bolt. So these are packages on the App Exchange for your community. They hold themes, templates, flows, and components. And they're used to deploy communities that you use over and over. And they're packaged communities for reuse. I do not recommend using a bolt just because you're having a bad deployment. It's not going to help you. Only use a bolt if you have a community that you're going to be reusing in multiple orgs. And then, and I promise you, we're almost to the demos. I just want to warn you about security. So security, I mentioned insurance, I mentioned healthcare, I mentioned financial services. I don't care which industry you're in, you need to think about being secure. Your data is yours. It is precious. You do not want to overexpose. And it all starts with your org-wide defaults. You have an internal org-wide default and an external org-wide default. And really quick, just because we can, let's figure it out. There we go. They are held in the exact same place. Let's go to this one here. I should be so proud of me. I have so few tabs open right now. Same place as your internal org-wide default is where you have your external. So you're going to go into your sharing settings. And one thing to keep in mind is if something is controlled by parent for internal, it has to be controlled by parent for external as well. But you'll notice here, I have leads for internal users as public read, write, transfer, but my external users have it as private. I am keeping that information locked down on the external side, but I have that information exposed internally. So making sure your data is locked down and set to private is extremely important on your community. And then also making sure you only grant object access for what they need to see. There is no reason to be granting community users access to things they don't need. And then audiences are your best friend. Build them with thought. This just made my day. So I learned in winter 21, finally in communities, you can use record data for your audiences. And what I mean by that is, let's jump over to my community. Oh, not my classic view. Let's go this one. So audiences are ways that you can decide which data is exposed within your community. So take a look. And what do you mean by transferable? All right. So let's go here. So yes, you can absolutely share with an external system if it's private, yeah. So over here on your actual component, you have your audience, and this is where you can assign. And we're gonna create a new audience here. You will notice that you have just location. That's the actual geographic location. And sadly, this isn't available to look at the geos within a developer org, but you can go by country, by city, by state. You can also go by permission. And this gets down to custom permissions. You'll notice I have a few in this org. Or you can go with the standard permission. and it lists actual permissions that are listed for users. Then you can go by profile, and it's just the name of the profiles. And that way, if you have multiple profiles, profile A could see this component only instead of profile B. And then you also have user, and you can set it up based on criteria related to the user that is viewing it. Up until this upcoming release that we don't have yet, so even now, we have never been able to make a component visible based on whether or not something was on a record. So let's say I didn't want to show a bunch of buttons on an account to edit it because they are on an opportunity because the opportunity was closed. We couldn't do that. Coming in winter 21, we finally can. It's so exciting. I love it. Something that has been asked for and asked for, that we're finally catching up with how you can within the app builder internally in Salesforce. But we do have a lot of functionality within communities that others don't, such as using the permissions and using location. Well, I guess permission is now available in App Builder, but using location isn't. So pretty cool stuff. I'm gonna actually set this up to say that the user type equals customer portal manager. Really quick to decode these for you. Customer portal manager means customer community plus. Customer portal user is customer community, and guest is guest, and partner is partner. Gotta love when API names and regular names and names within the community builder all differ a little bit. So we're gonna call this our CC plus, and I'm gonna go save and assign. And you'll now notice that this is termed purple. So within the community builder, it'll have a purple box around it if it has an audience assigned, so that you know that that is a dynamic component. All right. And then page variations and assignments. And so page variations work the same as dynamic components. And the components by audience, that was what we just went over. So we set up the audience and we made a component dynamic. And the way to make the page itself dynamic would be to go up here, click new page variation, and do the same. The difference for an object for page variations, I'm actually going to go to the account where this would make more sense. You actually have the option on objects where you can assign with one additional feature, where you have the functionality to choose a record type. This is a small piece of functionality that is available to only the object pages, and it's only accessible when you access through the pages and go to the page variation tab. And you'll notice if I click on account, and then over here I have my new record type and work. And the other place where you can access the record type functionality is when you go to theme, the drop down here, manage branding sets, and again click on the manage audience button, and areas where you can access that record type functionality. All right. And how are you setting up your security? So one thing I want to show all of you how to do is set up a couple of these sharing options. So I mentioned org-wide default. One of the things I want to show you is how to set up a sharing set. So we're going to go to community settings. Sharing sets are going to be your best friend when it comes to setting up sharing in a community. The very first thing you should always check when setting up a community and going to sharing is, can I do it with a sharing set first? So sharing sets are found in community settings and then down here at the bottom of the page. Every single community license outside of guest has access to sharing sets. We're going to jump into our partner community user sharing set. One thing you'll notice is that I have one set up here for a case. We're going to do a new one though, because it'll be more fun to do it from the start. So sharing sets, you get one sharing set per license. If I wanted to make a new sharing set, I can't use the partner community user license anymore. And then I can only share an object one way for that license. So opportunities can only be shared for partner community, the partner community profile in this way, not license, profile, sorry, profile. So I want to share accounts this time. And when I scroll down, you'll notice I have this cute little setup button that showed up. And your options for sharing sets are to match the contact's account on a user or the user's contact. And we're going to go with the user's contact's account or the user's contact's related account. So the contact related account is the account contact relationship for the contact on the user. And you can relate that to a field that matches on the related record. So if this parent account matches the contact's account contact relationship for the contact that's related to the user, I want to make sure they have read access. And it's that concept of having if you've ever used global variables in a formula field where my user ID matches the a formula that says current user ID, whenever those match to be true, same concept here. If contact related account and parent account equals true, show the data. And so you'll notice that that is now down here at the bottom. And I'm going to hit save. Now, mind you, this profile, once again, cannot be shared with account any other way outside of the inherit sharing. And that's how we set up the sharing set. And then the other types of sharing are account relationship sharing, which is only available to partners and Customer Community Plus. Channel programs, only available to partners. That's where you set up a bunch of data similar to Salesforce's partner program, where you can set up gold, silver, bronze. You can call them anything you want though, and they can be based on anything you want. They can be based on people that like pink or purple or blue, and they can have people in as many groups as they want to be in. You can also use sharing rules with Customer Community Plus and Partner and Guest, just not Customer Community. And then there's also the new Partner Account Hierarchy sharing. So way cool stuff that came out just this year is the concept that partners have visibility to their own hierarchies. So if I jump back to here and we go back to our community settings, you'll notice that you have a couple of checkboxes on this page, just a couple. It's like a page of checkboxes. So you'll see here that you have this option to enable external account hierarchy, and that allows you to turn on the visibility for partners to their own account hierarchy. Beware, once you turn that on, you cannot turn it off. Same thing with account relationships. That's the account relationship sharing. Once you turn it on, you cannot turn it off. Test your work in a sandbox. Always use a sandbox. And if it's your favorite developer org, test it in a junk developer org first. We all know we have favorite dev orgs. So the other option is power users. Power users give users on a specific account the ability to have superpowers over the data for that account. And then to talk a little bit about login and registration. You can have standard login or discovery login, and I'm actually going to jump in to our workspace. And I'm talking way longer than, I'm going to end up talking way longer than we planned. I'm sorry, all. So we have here the idea of login, and you'll notice that we have the option to go with just our experience builder, the login page. We can also change this to have a login discovery page. And this gives us our own options on how to set up our login. And you can have it be with email or phone, and that way users don't have to use their username and password. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was self-registration. There are some gotchas with self-registration to be aware of. First of all, when you have users that self-register, their option is to be joining a big giant group account. If they are doing that, make sure you don't have sharing set up so people see all the data on the same account. If they do, all of a sudden you're exposing all of everybody's data. Or users can be added to individual person accounts. Problem is, nobody really likes person accounts just due to the mess they make on your data model. So that brings you to option 3, your own custom self-registration. I highly recommend that if you do custom self-registration, you do a matching. Make sure you check to see if that user exists as, well, that contact, because all users are a contact. Check for that email address in the system. If that contact exists, use that existing contact. Don't cause yourself duplicate data. It can get really, really messy when people are registering and all of a sudden you have like 60 Meighan Roxas at Gmail because I don't remember how many times I joined that community, but I just keep registering because I forgot my password. I do that. I'm not the only one. So custom self-registration, take a look at it, especially if you have a customer community. And it's going to help you out and it's going to keep your data cleaner. The next item for your community is going to be your emails. Emails can be tricky. So I'm going to just jump over and show you these. So your community sends some emails all by itself. So you're going to set an email address up here. And this is going to be the email address that your emails send from. But it's only these emails sent from here. Now, mind you, that's your welcome email, your forgot password, change password, case comment, lockout, and one-time password. But you're thinking, well, what about all my other emails? What about my workflows? What about my process builders? What about my flows? For all of those, you're going to need to set up an org-wide email address that uses this same email address to have those send from your community email address. Otherwise, they're just going to send from that internal email. It's going to lead to some inconsistencies. The other gotcha that comes with emails that are sent besides these ones is the fact that those emails, the only way that they're actually going to open up to the community is if somebody is already logged into the community. If they just click the link in their inbox, it's going to open up regular Salesforce. It is not integrated with Marketing Cloud. Well, there are options to use Marketing Cloud journeys, but it is separate from Salesforce Community, and there's an entirely different setup that comes along with it. So your standard emails are sent via Salesforce for these 6, and the other emails are sent via regular Salesforce. Anything Marketing Cloud has an entirely different setup. Some things that I have done in the past are to use custom labels and have the email or the community URL within the label and within a field on the object, and to have the full URL in there. I have also had places that really like hard coding, which is extremely recommended against. Lots of options, but I recommend making sure you test any emails that you use and making sure that you're thinking it through. They do have some great options with journeys and Salesforce that have come out over the years, but they are used few and far between, and it usually with just extremely enterprise businesses from my experience. It'd be great to hear some from some of you that have maybe worked more Marketing Cloud. You can, so you can do multi-language. Visualforce emails don't work so well. I haven't done very many Visualforce emails in a community. The ones that I have done, they usually just have, yeah, let's talk about that during the questions. That's a great one. I would love to go over my experience there and what's happened. Yeah. The other thing I would like to talk about as we get closer is CMS. Actually, no, I'm going to talk about that email stuff. So I have done the language in a few different ways. So I have done it with multiple templates using HTML. I have done it with Visualforce templates and having multi-language. And I have also done it with having emails sent outside of Salesforce. And it's always been an interesting trip with just trying to figure out which way companies are used to sending their emails, so that because that's usually how they want to continue to send them, whether or not it is the way that the community is meant to send them. But I have done it with a bunch of custom labels. I have done it with translations. I have done it with, like I mentioned, a bunch of different HTML emails. And it's not the easiest. Multi-language emails in Salesforce just never are. Yeah, and any recommendations any of you have for multi-language emails would be awesome. I'm actually looking at a new multi-language project, so that would be great. CMS, native CMS. Oh my goodness, I have to grab my charger. Sorry, I switched rooms. 2 seconds. And I'll keep talking to you all. So CMS is pretty cool. So CMS has 3 options: native CMS, Salesforce CMS, and then CMS Connect. So native CMS is the ability to create CMS data within Salesforce and then expose it within your community. And then you also have Salesforce CMS, which is exposing a CMS data, or your Salesforce data as CMS. And then you have CMS Connect, which is exposing external data within your community. So let's jump back into our workspace. Thank you so much. Sorry to have to run out on all of you. Here we go. And so to start, we have the Salesforce CRM data. So this is the second one I mentioned. And as I mentioned, it's exposing Salesforce data as CMS. And I'm going to do a count. All right. Move the chat to the side. And here we go. What's really cool is, let's say you have products that you want to expose in your community. You know, when you look at a community, I'm actually going to jump back over here. When you look at a community and you see like a list view, absolutely, we can go over some of those systems. So I like to connect to WordPress. That's really one that I've connected to a number of times, just because that's where my blog is, but there are a ton of them. So first of all, I love it when it does this. Lightning. It's your favorite. All right, so let's do a refresh and then let's go to a different list. Maybe that'll help. Ticket list. Here we go. So when you look at a list view in Salesforce, it's kind of boring, right? It's just a list. And sometimes when you want to look at a list, oh my goodness, oh, it's probably one of my buttons. All right, let's pull up a different community. Maybe it'll work. So when you pull up a list in Salesforce, it's kind of boring because it's just a list of data. And it's just like, okay, column, 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 data, data, data. All right. But when you use the CMS connection, what you're able to do is end up seeing not just a bunch of columns that expose data, but you can actually expose data with images and have hyperlinks, and it turns it into more of a graphical experience. Now, I mentioned a product catalog. So think about having, instead of just your products as a list, but turning your products into, scroll down, turning your products into, so by the way, so this is the CMS Connect. Something like a link list. And I know these are a bunch of Astros, but let's pretend I have products instead of Astros. Let's cut it up in lightning speed. And here we go. Oh, after the component. Lightning speed, I promise you. There we go. So I get for switching orgs or switching communities in the middle of this. All right, let's go to preview and do this. Something like this. And you can have all your products displayed. Or if you wanted to change it up, let's say you were like, oh, I don't want it to be the little switchy thing. That's too much clicking. People don't want to click around. You can go, well, let's have it as a bunch of cards instead. And you can have your products displayed like this. So much better than a list view. And now all of a sudden, you've got it all set up so that it's something much easier and much more consumable to users when they're looking at your products. Nobody would know what Super Awesome Astro plushie looks like unless you give them a picture of it, right? Or the difference between Astro and Cody unless they're one of us. But now they would know because they were able to see some cool picture. And the place where you can actually set those pictures, let's see here, content layout. You would go, here we are. We've got the, where's the link? Fit show expert, banner. One of these ends up having the image. And there we go, headline. There we go. Featured media, field mappings, image, link. There we are. Or it's image. One of these two is the right field. But anyways, you get the point. So, so this is one of the custom objects that I have within my org. So just came up with it as so I use this to, so you can, so using CSS in a community is highly, highly recommended against. CSS is a big no, a big no. You're gonna end up having things that you have to change every release if you have CSS. Salesforce even has it in their documentation to not use CSS if at all possible. But to jump back over to finish setting this one up, so you have your account, then you jump over to your collection, and then here you can create a collection by clicking on this. And this is where all of a sudden your CRM contact comes up. And you go, account. And this is again in the other community, the one that broke on us. But we'll just go for it. Click on account. And it's as easy as picking from your list views that aren't going to show. Awesome. So we'll just jump back to this one and go to the workspace. And then let's look at the CMS Connect. We're just going to move forward because of time. And CMS Connect, as I mentioned, allows you to connect to a number of sources. So I mentioned before, I like connecting to WordPress. So what I had said before also was that that was what I had mine connected to, and I had shown you those tiles down at the bottom. You also have Adobe AEM, 2-second story. So a few years ago, when CMS Connect first came out, I had just done an implementation like a year or two before with Adobe AEM. And it had been like a 6 to 9 month implementation to get Adobe AEM set up. It wasn't supposed to be, it was supposed to be like 6 weeks. But then all of a sudden they added new libraries, then they added new languages. Next thing you know, it was huge, huge mess. And sitting there working through it. You can now set up Adobe AEM to connect to your community in less than 5 minutes instead of 9 months. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. So just so cool that something that took us months can now be done in less than 5 minutes, as long as you know the URL. You can also connect to Sitecore, SDL, Drupal, and Other is fantastic as well. Other allows you to connect to anything where you have the URL for their API. Your connections don't have to be public as well. They can also be authenticated, which is great. For example, if you're connected into a learning management system, always nice to have an LMS to log into and to just have that available for your users. That way only some people have access to the info, others do not. You can use your audience to decide whether or not they can see that component based on information on their profile. And then boom, you've just used two fantastic pieces of functionality, CMS Connect and Audiences, to make something dynamic and to connect them to external information. And then last but not least, when it comes to CMS, I had mentioned the fact that I was going to talk about the actual native CMS. So this one actually used to be on the internal Salesforce as well. And it's better not be one that ends up disappearing because I end up playing with my stuff. So we have the CMS workspaces that are available within Salesforce. And I'm gonna have to give myself a permission set. Awesome. So you actually have to give yourself a permission set for this one because they're just not available to everybody. I do love it when I all of a sudden start playing with stuff so I get unprepared. Let's do a double check on that and just make sure that it wasn't there and it wasn't a typo. I'm very good at those. Yeah, no, it's not there. Okay. All right. Yeah, do that. All right. I have to move your chat cell again. All right. All right, so here we go. Let's go back. But in that one, you're able to set up your content right here, type it in, connect it to not just one workspace like you used to be able to, but you can connect it with multiple, which was something that wasn't able before. Another thing I wanted to let you all know about are actions within your community. They are your best friend within a community. They're what you connect with your buttons. They're what you are going to use to create most of your records. They're what you connect your tile menus, your navigation. Couple of gotchas though. They do not fire assignment rules. They also don't fire auto response rules. So make sure that you either have a way to trigger assignment rules after and a way to trigger auto response. And then the other thing, knowledge. Knowledge is used with your self-service. You can use both Lightning and Classic Knowledge in a Lightning community. One thing you need to be aware of though is that your data categories, they don't mean anything when it comes to searching and within your community. You have to add topics to make things searchable. And that is done within your community workspace. And you also have to make sure that you're assigning a channel to your knowledge records. There's also no list view for knowledge as a whole. So that's something that you're gonna have to do custom and on your own. So just make sure that you've gone in and you've come up with a way to properly display your knowledge articles. There's just an article detail and then a topics page. So if you want to be able to, you can absolutely integrate with SharePoint, Dropbox, OneDrive, and Google Drive via the files component, or via custom components. So yeah, and it'll show up if you have Google Drive connected and you have Customer Community Plus or partner licenses, it'll show up on files and you have given them access. But you can't do it with Customer Community. That's one thing to be extremely aware of. Yeah, Customer Community has a lot of limits when it comes to files. Does that help? There are some cool apps though for knowledge that are out there. There's one by AC Components. There's one by Bedrock. Happy to share some recommendations, but both of those give you a list view. I believe the one by AC Components is the one with the collapsible sidebar that actually shows data categories broken out, which is super helpful when you're trying to figure out where am I going. And it also has a search bar on the top that searches just what's below. So pretty awesome stuff. All right. Sorry that I rushed towards the end. And sorry that the list view wasn't working on the one community, but luckily we were able to bring up a different one. It's the advantage of having a bunch of communities on the same org. Questions. Let's dig into questions. Sorry I talk so much. What's up?
There are lots of questions in the chat window.
Yes.
You can have a look.
Yeah.
And many more to come.
Yeah, so I will talk a little bit about CMS Connect. Let me bring up a great example. So I have one that is connected to WordPress right now. So right here, this component here is connected to WordPress. And I will actually show you directly how it is connected. I got no problem with that. So let me do this tab and do not this one, but let me switch communities. So the way that it connects is pretty straightforward. As long as you know the WordPress API URL, you can display any WordPress site. There's no authentication for it. It's pretty sweet. So you'll notice here, I just have WordPress. I named it WordPress because I'm very creative. And it's just kind of like why I named my snail. So you'll notice here, it's just API-WordPress.com. And then here, it's just the links. You just drop the URL in for the site you're trying to connect, and the rest of the URLs are the same. I actually have a blog post on it as well. That drops all the links in there and everything that you need. I'm happy to drop the link into the chat for you for that blog post. They recently changed, well, not recently, about a year or so ago, they changed what the URLs were and made it a lot more straightforward. But it's pretty easy. You just set up what it is for the individual page and what it is for the list. And you can have these link to actual WordPress or stay within your blog. There is one page for the actual post. One thing that's a downside is you can't format these. So you'll notice, for example, your images get all smushed to the side. There's no way to format the JSON that comes over, which is kind of a bummer. But it is something that has been recommended and is being looked at by the CMS team. So any feedback that you all can give them as well, and when using this, and information that you can give as real life use cases from what customers are doing would be helpful. So you don't have, once you set up your blog and you set up that actual like home, what is the URL for the blog itself, that's the only time that you ever set the link. I set this up back in 2018 and I've never changed it, and it updates with all of my new blog posts all by itself.
Hey Meighan, I will read out a few questions for you.
Yeah.
Can community license be used for internal users?
No, they cannot. It's against the terms of service.
Yes.
Salesforce will come down on you for that one.
If its access is private, then is it transferable? Share the data to the external system.
Yep, that can be done. Yeah, it can share with an external system.
Yes. Is it the same feature of personalization on Community Cloud?
So, what do you mean by personalization?
Yeah, QV, if you don't mind, can you put it in a detailed way? And from a question from Hazar, for sending emails, what system or application is used? Will it be integrated with SFMC to send emails?
Yes, you can do some stuff with Marketing Cloud. Your welcome email, your forgot password, your changed password, your case comment, your one-time password, and your lockout will always come from the community. But you can do additional journeys with Marketing Cloud. As to how much of that and how those work with Marketing Cloud, I haven't done very much of that at all. That's always been up to the Marketing Cloud team. I can't tell you so much there, but I can definitely get you in touch with some people.
Okay, so another question. Only one language is supported in templates?
Yeah, so that's where I had talked about the fact that, so I've done templates a few different ways. You can, depending on how you set them up, you can either set up translations, you could do multiple templates, one for each language. It really all depends on what the customer is doing and how you want to structure it. You have options, but as with Salesforce, language options, they're here and there when it comes to multi-language.
Any example of systems which we can connect to CMS?
I just went over those.
Yes, yes. There is a good compliment from Vivek Singh, lightning justifying its name. Yeah. Do we have option to custom link list? I mean, over to standard link list? Yeah, these also over, right?
Yeah.
Then okay. Can we have third-party integrations with SharePoint, Dropbox, Microsoft, OneDrive, Google Drive?
Customer Community Plus and Partner can.
Awesome. The CMS Connect is very exciting. Can you explain a bit more as to how WordPress can be used? This is something that I have learned before. I think it is already explained, Krishna.
Yeah.
Do you want to show something, Meighan?
Nope, I was just going back to the home page where I was showing that it auto updates with the blog post every time all by itself.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So there's a question from QE. Cannot understand differences between native CMS and Salesforce CMS.
Yeah, so native CMS are actual articles that you write up within Salesforce. And Salesforce CMS is when you take Salesforce data and turn it into that already exists, such as account, product, contact, and turn that into something pretty, like a tile or a slider.
Okay, cool. Can you look into the chart window at the time 12:14? 12:14, yeah, it is IST. There is a question from Krishna Kumar. I also use CMS Connect and bring content inside community, everything. Okay. It is a little bit above in the chart. Yeah.
Yeah, see, so yeah, no, I feel you. It's really funky looking. No, it really does come over funky. And it's not just you. That's just the way that it comes over. I've given that feedback to the CMS team a few times, and you're not alone. Not alone at all. And they know that too. It's just one of those things where they have issues with the way that it's formatted and the JSON, the HTML, everything that I've tried, and they feel it as well. It's something about the formatting just can't come over with the way that it's feeding through. One thing they have talked about is giving you the ability to style on the Salesforce side in the future. If you have any feedback and any customer examples or any org examples, feel free to reach out to me. I would love to provide that over to the CMS team to let them know. Thank you.
Awesome, Meighan.
Shoot me a message after this. That would be great to connect you.
Yeah, there are lots of questions to you, and I think we are done with Q&A. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for having us here in the session, and it's been a great session. Thank you very much, Meighan. It means a lot to us. You joined us. I think it's 1 a.m. Your time. You are still there and rocking the session as usual. A great leader, a great mentor, and a great person we are having in this session. And once again, thanks a lot. It really means a lot.
Thank you all so much. It was great being here.
Thank you. Okay, guys. Thanks for joining us.